I think we can go. Got it. Thank you. Okay, we will start. Well, good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the workshop or the activity number 14 in the program. And we're going to talk a little bit about transformational niche in the global south, in particular in Mexico. Thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to share my screen so that we can start our presentation. Here we go. So I would like to first begin by introducing the group that we have been working on this presentation. And this is a group that is very diverse. And this is like a collective that we have been working for the last 2 years in transformation, innovation, transformative innovation. My name is Teresa de Leon, and I had the pleasure to start the collaboration with TIPSI 2 years ago when I was working in the public sector, specifically in the National Science and Research Council. And we started the collaboration with SPRU to become part of the consortium. Unfortunately, with the entrance of the new government, that effort stopped. That was not continued, unfortunately. But nevertheless, this group of people that I will talk to you a little bit about, we continued working. So we continued even not being part of the consortium, but we kept the conversation about transformative innovation. I think we were all very convinced from the beginning of the potential of this knowledge area of transformative innovation, about how to approach the social challenges in a very innovative way, how to reflect about the changes that really have to happen in order to tackle those societal challenges. So we have been working, we haven't stopped working, related to try to build our knowledge infrastructure related to the topic, but also trying to identify experiments and projects, new collaborations where we can bring all of these knowledge into the table. So I would like to talk about a little bit about each one of us. So Julio Alcántar, who unfortunately could not be here, he works in a public research center related to technology innovation. He is the head of the strategic planning department in that research center. And he is an important contributor to the knowledge that we are growing in Mexico related to transformative innovation. Carmen Bueno, who is here. Carmen, you can raise your hand. And she was one of the early adopters of transformative innovation when I was working for the National Science and Technology Council. She immediately jumped into all of these knowledge, philosophy, and opportunities for developing research, but also for developing new projects and new policy related to these. She is an anthropologist and she is a senior researcher at a private university in Mexico City, La Universidad Iberoamericana. Myself, I already mentioned something about myself, and the names here are in alphabetical order, so I'm gonna keep doing that. So as I said, I was working in the public service. Not anymore. I went back to my social background, and I am working on transformative innovation as a practitioner and working directly with NICHES and trying to identify experiments to help transformative change. So all my professional life, I've been working in innovation, and transformative innovation is for foremost the most exciting thing I've ever been involved, and very challenging, trying to really identify the way and the means for committing in change. So Fatima, who she couldn't be with us either, Fatima used to work also for the public sector, in the public policy sector, in the head office of the Agenda 2030 in Mexico, which was located in the presidency. as with Paulina Terrazas. Pau, if you want to raise your hand also. And she's now working as a consultant in topics related to transformative innovation and to those topics related to the 2030 agenda. Aleitia, she's an economist. If you want to raise your hand, Aleitia, please. She's an economist and she did her master's degree in energy policy at SPRU in Sussex. And she's also an active member of this collective, contributing, especially from the energy sector, the knowledge infrastructure related to transformative innovation. She works now at the GIS, the German cooperation agency here in Mexico, and she will talk a little bit more about that in one of our slides. And Paulina, she is also an economist background and an international affairs background, a social researcher, who also used to work in the presidency office in Mexico in the Agenda 2030. And now she's doing her PhD at the Universidad de Valencia, directly with Ingenio, and also very active collaborator and a passionate of transformative innovation. So this is our group. We are a collective, and we thank you very much for joining. We're very much interested, as I mentioned, to grow the knowledge around transformative innovation in Mexico, but also, and this is one of the purposes of this workshop, we would like to engage with the international community to keep the conversation, to grow our network, but also thinking about experiments. We want to think in specific action projects that can help transformative innovation in Mexico. So the aim of this project is, as I was mentioning, is how can we work? I mean, considering this issue related to context-related for particular study cases versus generic and global, can we really talk about joint international experiments? Can we really bring the global north and the global south together with action experiments that can support niches, considering our context? Is that possible? Is it not? Why? But if it is, what can we do? Who can we work with? How can we do this? So this is sort of the reflection that we want to provoke in this workshop. And we want this workshop to be very participatory. We're going to use the platform Miro, and Paulina is going to explain to us a little bit more about that. But we want to use your creativity, your knowledge about the subject to try to think about experiments and try to engage, and hopefully not ending the conversation in this workshop, but really to link, to network, and to work together in the future. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do in this workshop, and I'm going to let Paulina work us through.
Thank you, Tere. Thank you, everyone. So we want to first start with a case study that we want to present as to showcase what being an agroecological niche in the global south has meant in this specific example. So that would be the start. Then we would like to go from there and continue the exercise, thinking together what international joint experiments can we think of that can contribute to the agroecological niche. So we're hoping to have, we're taking Miro from there, and we're hoping to have a space to discuss and to brainstorm about experiments. And then from there, we're borrowing one of TIPSY's visual aids to try and think and link those experiments with transformative outcomes, and to try to think about which transformative outcomes apply to each experiment proposed, and whether that can also build up the discussion. And finally, we would like to think about what are the resources needed and which strengths and weaknesses can we identify of those joint international experiments to kind of close up the discussion and think and have a complete conversation about this.
Wonderful. So as you see, we really want this workshop to be very active, very proactive, very participatory, and we want to hear you. We want to know from you. and to exploit your creativity and your enthusiasm. So I'm going to stop sharing right now, and what we would love you to do right now is we want to know who is in the room, and we would like to give you, you know, some 30 seconds, 40 seconds for each one of our participants to introduce yourselves and to get to know you a little bit better. So, Diego, would you like to start?
Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Hernando Flores. I am a doctoral student in the Universidad do Vale de Itajaí. I am from Colombia, but living here in the southern Brazil. My research focus is in urban transition, but I have another focus or project that is the cook stove in Quetzaltenango, Guatemala, because I have a lot of several experience in projects in economic and social projects in the Inter-American Development Bank, in the Presidency of the Republic of Colombia. I worked in the public sector for more of 12 years. Okay, that's it. This is my experience and my background.
Thank you, Diego.
No worries.
Klaus.
Hey, my name is Klaus Seift. I'm an expert for transformative innovation policy and transformation policy situated in Germany and Switzerland, on the borders Germany, Switzerland, France. I have quite a lot of experience. I was for several years working for the German Federal Agency for Agriculture and food systems in this field, developing innovation, so sort of innovation monitoring, transformative innovation monitoring system for the agency, actually. I have even some experience with Mexico. I was invited it was a very huge conference on sustainable energy provision in Guadalajara. In 2014, and I was even in the Mexican television at that time, it was about energy provision in the rural sector, a huge conference there. I was working in the Wuppertal Institute at that time. And I can give you some examples. I experienced in Mexico that several of the or in other Latin American countries too, because my brother is working as a Catholic priest in Peru at the moment, wow. And actually I experienced that the transformative innovation projects in Mexico or in Peru, they are more funded or financed by the cultural side. So I can give you the example, send you the link to the Casa Galina. I do not know if you know it. It's in Mexico City. It was fun. It was organized or built up by an artist, and this artist is it's quite funny. He is a foundation in my hometown is more or less financing this initiative in Mexico City, or this project and transformative innovation, especially in the last years. I was focusing. Normally, I'm an expert for energy and transport, and then I was asked to look on innovation and innovation ecosystems in the agroecological sector, and I was really working at the university, specialized on that, on rotation systems in farming, etc., and all these innovations you normally have in agroecology, and how you can implement them.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing, and we would love to hear more about it. And certainly your experience is going to be very helpful for this workshop. Thank you. Victoria.
Hello, I was just typing in a message there. I'm afraid I need to help with some different conference tasks, so I'm just sort of dipping in. But I'm Victoria Shaw, and I work for TIPSI as a co-program director with Christina Miriti. And yeah, really interested to hear of the work presented at the session today, but I might need to dip out and watch the recording, so I'm not sure. So forgive me if I do. Thanks.
That is great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all your support. Vipashi.
Hello. Hello again. So just to introduce myself, I'm Poshi. I work in TIPSI, based in Spru in Sussex, in UK. And my research interest is in the global south, looking at transitions in the global south. So that was also my PhD here at Spru. And I particularly looked at mobility system transformation in India and also in Thailand. So that was my sort of PhD research, but currently I'm obviously looking into all the contexts where TIPSI works in. So I'm kind of trying to learn from contexts in Africa and also in Latin America. So it's really good to be here and learn from all of you.
It's great having you here too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Katharina.
Hello. Can you see me? Does my video work? Sorry,
Yes.
okay. I just never sure where I'll pop up. Hi, I'm Katarina. Very good to be here. I am finishing my PhD on agroecological transitions. So my PhD work is focused on Nicaragua and on the agroecological or on the whatever transition to agroecology is happening there. And I lived and worked there for for about 3 years, working with the International Center for Tropical Agriculture. And with them, I was working on a larger program concerning the scaling of sustainable agricultural innovations. And for that, I also spent a year in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, working with small farmers on different agricultural innovations there. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what everybody has to say.
Thank you. And certainly scaling is an issue, scaling of agroecological. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. And it's great to have you. And Nora.
Thank you very much. My name is Nora Ndeke. I am a PhD student at the Science Policy Research Unit, the University of Sussex. And my current work sort of try to see how we can develop inclusive agricultural pathways. And of course, I'm looking at the role of digital technologies in supporting more inclusive agri-food systems. So I think I'm looking forward to this because part of my work, still developing this, is to look at alternatives. And of course, these alternatives could be novel initiatives or niches that are actually being developed, for example, in agroecology. And of course, I want to see this in the context of Kenya, because I am from Kenya, and see, what sort of novel initiatives or these experiments, how can they be scaled, networked, and become mainstream. So that is kind of what I am doing, and I look forward to interacting with you. Thanks.
Me too, and we for sure. And I think that digital technologies can be an amazing tool to really help scaling niches. So thank you very much for being here. All right, I think, well, Pip, and Pip is our facilitator within this Spru team. Pip, would you like to say something?
Hello, yeah, it's good to be here, and yeah, I'm very much looking forward to hearing and learning.
Thank you. And I would like to ask my colleagues if anybody wants to add something else.
Well, very short, because I think we have very good group, very interesting group. And well, I'm Carmen. I'm in a project in the hub of Sussex, is the Latin American hub. And I'm especially interested in epistemic diversity in agroecological regions. I mean, projects that help to develop regions. So I think that's a big issue that should be taken very seriously in transformative innovation, okay? Because especially in Mesoamerica, we have lots of indigenous marginal regions, and the ethnic part is very important. And I learned a lot about international collaboration when Tere invited me to be part of the consortium. So I think it's very important to talk about that. How can we continue doing this international collaboration, North-South and South-South? That's also very important.
Thank you, Carmen. Paulina, Leia, any thoughts? Okay, so let's continue with our workshop, and I'm going to describe to you the specific study case, the agroecological niche that I have been working on for the last 2 years as a master's project at a private university here in Puebla, Mexico, Universidad Iberoamericana in Puebla. But before I go there, I really want to thank Pip and all of the other organizers of this conference. I think it has been a spectacular space for sharing, for networking, and for growing the knowledge around transformative innovation. And I also want to thank the Latin American Hub, and I will do that. I will ask Carmen to bring that message to the participants in the hub, because it has been an amazing space to continue the work around transformative innovation. They have this YouTube channel where they upload all of the videos of their meetings and different workshops, and that certainly has been a very important tool for this group to continue our growth around transformative innovation. So having said that, I'm going to talk to you about the particular niche that we are going to talk about. And it's within the food system as a socio-technical, very complex system all over the world. But in order to do real transformative changes, as we know, context is very important. So we cannot, and that's something I learned after my years in CONACYT, the National Research and Science and Technology Council, is that public policy has to be local, has to really consider the characteristics of a particular territory in order to really engage with the actors that will make changes. So I will talk to you a little bit about this research that I did for 2 years related to a particular niche that I identify in a particular territory in Mexico, and I will describe more a little bit about that. So if we use our multi-level perspective within our theory framework, which is related to the context, the regime, and the niche, I would like to give you some information about it. So what is the context in the food system? And we know this. We know that the food system is provokes 30% of waste, 30% of the food that is being produced gets wasted. It just goes directly to the trash, and it's a huge biomass loss that we have there. The food system, as we also know, it provokes 30%, around 30% of the carbon emission gases that go to the atmosphere and that are creating this huge problem, climate change problem. And with that, it creates a serious food security problems, as we know, and also land use. And we know that because we are, the land that we're using, we're just, exploiting it, the migration that causes is very relevant. So in the territory that I am going to talk to you about, migration because of misuse of land can be even up to 50% of the population. 50% of a particular territory moves away, gets exposed because they cannot use the land anymore for growing food because they have agglutinated the land. So, and there's more information about the context related to the food system, which probably you are already familiar of. I'm going to stop with those elements of the context, but I don't want to continue without talking about the SDGs as part of the context that brings us opportunities to do something around the problem in these foods, in this socio-technical system. And I also want to highlight this very particular policy pact, which is called the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, that is bringing cities together in order to provoke transformational changes within the food system. So that's an important element in the context as a global thing that could have impact in local territories. Now, talking a little bit about the regime. So the regime in this socio-technical system, and this is particular to Mexico right now, and this is Mexico for those who don't know where we are in the globe. So we are at the south of the United States of America. This is Central America, and the territory I'm going to talk to you about is right in the middle of the country. As you know, Mexico very recently changed government, and we have what it's called the fourth transformation, which has been shown a very populist narrative and very populist public policy that we're living and that we're facing. And that even though in the narrative they talk about transformation, the truth is that the transformation they're seeking is very into the populist side of things that are not necessarily very amiable with innovation and with growth and with progress, unfortunately. Also, part of the regime has to do with what is the policy towards the climate change. In Mexico, unfortunately, we're not very friendly with the mitigation of CO2 carbon emissions, unfortunately, and that goes through not only the food system, but also the energy system and the water system. We're still very, very dependent on petroleum, on gas and oil. Related also to the regime, as we know, values is a very important component of the regime. And unfortunately, capitalism here has been, as in many other parts of the world, the values in capitalism, preferring the value of money over the value of society has been how businesses have conducted and worked in our country. We have multinationals that control the market and the food system. Our science, technology, and innovation sector right now, unfortunately, is losing strength. There is a confrontation with universities, with knowledge, with innovation, and we're sort of worried about that. The political environment in our country is very strong, is very deep within our ways of living and our values and culture. And unfortunately, with that, it comes the corruption and the lack of good governance. We don't like, and this president doesn't like good governance. It's fighting against transparency, unfortunately, and we are losing the beautiful momentum that our country had pushed for the last 70 years. And to finish, but not less important, is the church. As you know, Mexico is a very religious country. Christianism values are very strong, very dominant, and that is part of the regime that definitely affects a lot of our behavior, a lot of our values, and a lot of the way we do things. And let's talk a little bit now about the niche. So choosing the food system as a socio-technical system that I wanted to study and to know more. Okay, so who in the territory is working in innovation, in changing this regime, in changing and also taking advantage of the good things in the context to try to get a more sustainable food system? So the niche is located specifically in the central part of the country, in Puebla, in the state of Puebla, and specifically in a region that is called Cholula. Cholula is a very particular territory and beautiful territory, millenary city, which means it is a city that has been inhabited for thousands of years in our country. And with that, it has a beautiful, it has left a beautiful architecture, cultural, nature, traditions, trueque, you know, an exchange of goods, that it's very inclusive with the different social groups in the place. And we have a beautiful traditions, beautiful nature. You know, we're next to the volcanoes, Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl. This has been a land that has been conquered. So we have this combination of religious, the Christian, the Spanish, but also the indigenous tradition and culture. So we have churches, but we also have a huge pyramid, the biggest base pyramid in the world, as I've known. And agriculture has been very important in the region for millions of years, thousands of years. And obviously the traditions, and here's one, which is my favorite, that has to do with the Dia de Muertos, you know, the Dead's Day, which is a tradition that is still, you know, ongoing. So this is part of where we are, and we cannot deny. So in my study, I mapped and I identified 45 initiatives that are doing something to change the food system. The growth of cities, as we know, is very invasive. Cities and the real estate and the housing sector are disappearing green areas, are disappearing the agriculture activity in order to allow more buildings and more people to come to this region. So it is very important, the resistance that that this niche in particular is putting to that growth. So these 45 initiatives, and you can go to my website, alcentrodelamesa.com, and you can see this map. It's an interactive map where you can see the 45 initiatives that are very diverse. So it's urban gardens, certainly, those green spots that you see there. It's about 15 urban gardens trying to do agroecological food production in the territory. But we also have restaurants that are buying to local growers and that are producing traditional food. And we also have universities and research, centers that are trying to promote environmental knowledge and the importance of climate change, but also the importance of innovative ways of food production and also waste management. And there's also these kind of farmers markets that sell organic or agroecological produce that has been produced within the local territory. So these 45 initiatives, I am packaging them as the niche that is trying to change the system and that have certain particularities that I would like to talk to you more about it, because I think this is an important part of information that will allow us to really decide if international cooperation makes sense or not to this territory. So this is a SWOT analysis, and the niche has certain strengths. This niche shares a vision, a very strong vision that is related to changing the food system, that is related to recover the traditional culture and values, that is related, very strongly related to nature and to the importance of Mother Earth and to the well-being of all ethnic and social groups as well as nature. So that's a very, very strong shared vision. The niche and the actors are very passionate people and very knowledgeable of the agroecological and cultural knowledge. And they also are working these schemes of sociocracy. So how to really incorporate all the knowledge, transdisciplinary knowledge that is within the 45 actors in the niche. Unfortunately, and I'm moving into the weaknesses part, we still have this niche, and I'm going to talk about we, including me, because I'm strongly working with the niche now. We have a very weak networking. Those 45 initiatives do not know each other, and we are not working together yet. So as Carmen once told me, we could consider it a proto-niche. So it's a niche in process of development. We have a very weak group structure. So even though we commit to meet every week, You know, the agenda keeps changing, the day keeps changing, the time keeps changing. People get into the meetings late, they leave early. So we still have a lot to work around structure and strengthening our network. There is no public involvement in the niche. There's non-actors. None of those 45 actors are related to the public sector. So I think that that's something that has to be included in order to strengthen the niche and to really identify experiments or interventions that can help protecting the niche and helping the niche to scale. And there's no diffusion of knowledge. Then the actors are very enclosed within one another, and there's no sharing with the rest of the population. So we see some opportunities like this Milan Policy Pact. Definitely, I think that's something in the context that we should take advantage of. Within the local governments, there's this instance that is called participatory councils, which is a space where the civil society can work with the local government to identify experiments, projects, and plans that might be able to help us really protecting and enhancing the niche. And that's something that we're starting as I speak to look into as a niche. And we have a new local government. And yes, the environment has a very heavy political weight, but the good thing is that they just started. And all governments that start, they want to do new things and they want to get involved and they want the civil society to participate. So we really want to make sure that we take advantage of that new momentum. And finally, the threats that I see is that, as I mentioned right now, there's a real state sector, very aggressive, they're very capitalist oriented, and they want to take the best value of the land. And growing food, unfortunately, has a very weak perception has a very weak social value, unfortunately, right now. The city of Puebla, which is the main, and it's the second or third big city in the country, it's a very expansive model, very aggressive. So our land is going through a lot of pressure. We as a niche need to identify economic sustainability to each one of the 45 initiatives, otherwise they will die. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's part of the regime. There's a huge populistic narrative in our country that doesn't necessarily help innovation. So this is the multi-level analysis that I can share with you. And the question here is, considering this multi-level characteristic and distinctive context, the question is, can we think about any joint international global North and global South experiments? How can we imagine they can be? Who, what, when, etc. And with that, I would love to just ask Aletia to maybe start and provoke the conversation and the dynamic by just sharing one example of experiments that are happening in Mexico that are related, global North, global South, that have to do transformative innovation. Aletia.
Thank you very much, Tere. Well, yeah, exactly. As Tere mentioned at the beginning of the conference, I work with GIZ, and well, I just want to make a statement that this is not a commercial, and I'm just talking just by myself as a collaborator with the organization. But I think it's really important, well, first of all, to mention which topics I am working on. I am working on, it's more related with urban transitions, but I'm more focused on transport transitions. So under this topic at GIZ, we are working very closely with with public institutions that are interested in implementing these new projects related with new technology that is emerging in the country. As we know, there's a strong tendency that transport can move towards sustainability, to a more sustainable one. But under this transition that we all want to see, there are many topics that are very, well, that we need to focus on. One of it is, for example, talking about the technology that is available related to the vehicle, but also about digitalization. And from the other side, all the policy mixes that we need to strongly promote these kind of practices. No, as we all know, technology is not a solution itself. So it is important to have the context and all these complementary policies that can promote this transition. So very quickly, just to continue with the conversation and to hear more about your ideas. For example, we have GIZ. As you know, this is an international cooperation from the federal government in Germany that promotes sustainable practices. There are some resources that come to a country in the global south, that is in this case, Mexico. And we are trying to implement, for example, new pilot projects to test new technologies that can allow government or enterprises to understand the benefits of the implementation of these new technologies. Also, for example, from this implementation, we have governments learning from these experiences about the policies that we need to create, how to monitor these kind of policies, and also to understand the benefits of the implementation of these kind of policies. And for example, all of this work is done with national consultants, people that it's working on the ground, and also the government, the national government. So this is the kind of experiments that we are looking for, or ideas that we're looking for, that are related with the side of financial, with the funding. Now, where can we find sources of funding that can be help in the implementation of experiments here in the south, in the global south, and also from the other side, other kind of institutions or consultancies or experts that are allowed to improve or to drive this kind of experiments. So this was just a very brief introduction or an example of what we're looking for. And I think, well, that's it all, and the floor is yours, and we are very happy to hear what you have to say.
Wonderful, thank you, Alicia. Okay, so that's all for me, and I now will leave the floor to Paulina, who's going to help us work with the Miro platform and to move along with the interactive part of this workshop.
So I just pasted the link and so that everyone can access. And I will also share my screen. So that everyone can see where we are. So I can now see that participants are joining, which is good. So the first question that we had is to try to brainstorm, what international joint experiments can we think of? So feel free to grab a Post-it and to write whatever you can think of down. We can give it a couple of minutes. Or let us know if you need help with the Post-its. I know Miro can sometimes be challenging as well, but we're here to try and think about that.
And also, in the meantime, I would also like to maybe inspire you with a very recent thing that I got acquainted with. Actually, was yesterday, and this was a student from the Technological University from Munich, who developed this amazing program in her university that's called Plant a Seed, where students create their urban gardens within the university. And because one of her teachers was from Mexico, she's now in Cholula starting to create a community garden. So she's a student from the Technological University of Munich in Cholula, trying to launch this beautiful community garden, working with the community, working with local universities and schools. Unfortunately, she's only going to be here for a couple of months, but that's sort of, or it could be sort of an experiment that can be designed and implemented that will certainly help the local niche. So I just wanted to share that with you. Nice. So we're having a lot of ideas.
Yes, we can now see many ideas popping up.
great. So just trying to build on some of these ideas. I don't want to leave the international part away from these. So for example, if we're talking about rooftop farmers, I don't know who put that idea down, but how would that look with an international collaboration? So the same with, you know, regenerative agriculture. How can we include the international component there? Is it maybe identifying universities, you know?
Teresa.
Yes.
Sorry. I put the vertical farming and additional throughout the Festival of the Gardens. As you know, in Spain exists a city near to Sevilla. I don't remember the name of the city. They have vertical farming and make a festival of in all houses. This is an international experience. Nice project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So perhaps we should give voice to the rest of the participants. They want to share. I see that Katerina, you were writing something.
Yeah, I was thinking about, also because you said, Teresa, that in your case study that that the policy part was so hard to integrate. And one way that I've seen being done in different parts of the world is, you know, through food policy councils. And I was thinking maybe, I don't know if there's exchanges between food policy councils. I know there's like the Global Covenant of Mayors and things like that that bring urban areas together. So maybe there's some network, or definitely learning could be shared between how different food policy councils are set up, how they work, how they network with places that are trying to set up, or with where such things don't exist yet or aren't so efficient yet.
Absolutely, yeah. I love these cities or regions that have created their own food policy councils. Unfortunately, in Mexico, that is not the case. There's a huge knowledge gap in that sense. And to be honest, especially related to this niche, talking to the public sector, they are not even aware of the importance of the food system within a territory. They do not know, you know, what's wrong about it. One good thing is that we still produce a lot of food. We have beautiful farmers markets in Cholula in Mexico, and food doesn't seem to be a problem. Even though we face 25% of insecurity, food insecurity issues, and even though, as we know, we waste a lot of food, and a lot of carbon emissions are related to that, and health issues. So yeah, food policy councils, I think it's a great international experiment that we can learn from. How to match them with whom here, that will be a challenge.
Yes.
Klaus had his hand up.
Yes, I'm a bit puzzled because you have, particularly in Latin America, you have quite a tradition of collaborative systems for food production. how are they called, Genossenschaften, collaborations, for example, in Colombia, and so on, where the food is produced in the countryside, and they are collaborating with these cooperatives in the larger cities. So I'm a bit puzzled, because actually the food system and agroecology is very much, as well in Germany, is very much linked to local and regional production. The problem we have in Europe is that we have an agricultural policy and subsidizing policy, which is pushing or supporting innovation in large scale farming. And now we have a problem that this is good for food security, because ecological production has can always only produce around, if it's highly technical and industrialized. I learned this at my agroecology department I was working in, can only produce 70% of the food which can be produced with industrial farming. And this is the debate. So food security is about this mass production, and then it is always argued, yeah, we need industrial farming because you get more out than with agroecological farming. But agroecological farming is much securing, because it's guaranteeing food sovereignty, we call this. So it's always the debate among food, or the discourse amongst food security on one side and food sovereignty on the other side.
Yep.
And when you build up a local system, it's about food sovereignty, that you do this in the regional and local sphere, and you need other financing mechanisms, because food is sometimes then a bit more expensive. I do not know how this is in Mexico, because I think you have other price structures, but in Germany it's more expensive. And then this is then, but it's working well. So we have now a new government in Germany, which is really pushing towards agroecological food production, and animal how is it called? Animal health, animal protection, so that they have no mass animal production.
Right.
Perhaps we had more ideas coming up. Maybe Vipashi, do you want to share some of yours? Thank you, Klaus.
Yeah, I'm still writing. It's really good to sort of think about different options. I was mainly obviously thinking in terms of transformative outcomes. Then I thought that that's the next question. Okay, so I was mainly sort of thinking of different ways in which, because the focus is on international collaboration or international joint experiments. So it makes it a bit more specific to what can you do beyond the local. And that's interesting to hear. That's interesting to think about, because you can think of experimentation at a local level, then that's a very different thing to do than international level. So in the international level, it's only, I think the main thing is learning and knowledge sharing and circulation of ideas. So that's something that I have focused on in several of my contributions, where I try to think about what are the different things what are the different aspects in which knowledge sharing can happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it could be about this new practices of regenerative agriculture, new practices of waste management. So the problem of food waste. So how people deal with food waste elsewhere. And I can see others also wrote about learning from similar technologies adopted in a context. I think that's not my contribution, but I agree with that. and learning from food councils also an important thing. So yeah, I think a next step would be to also kind of club together some of these contributions and thinking of, okay, different things that you can do knowledge exchange on. And then I feel there is also the aspect of replication, which we can talk about in the next section, I guess. But I'll leave it there. I think learning is most important in this at this point at an international level.
And I love that, Bipashi, and I would like to ask. So there's a wide variety of actors with the niche. How can we make sure we as transformative innovation practitioners, and considering this international component, how and what's the best way to get to all of them? You know, how do you diffuse this knowledge considering that wide range of actors inside of a niche?
Yeah, but please, you have to really to focus what you want to learn. You want to learn about institutional structures, about financial structures. Like I brought in this idea of this German Regionalwert, we call it, which is a sort of a cooperative system where it's not on a revenue agriculture with revenue creation in only a money sense, but also a revenue regarding soil health, etc. So I think there are such institutional, organizational systems, but we have really to understand that especially agroecology and food is frugal innovation. So it's very specific, and there are very good traditions in India which you cannot transfer to Latin America, because you have the traditions and the systems there. So I would be a bit careful to think too technocratic. So this is a bit my concern.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I totally agree what Klaus was just saying. And that's also a point about replication, because you can't replicate food practices that are very, very contextual and also embedded in local culture, local food habit. So it's hard to replicate things, and you shouldn't try to replicate. So then the question becomes, what can you learn from elsewhere and what you shouldn't learn from elsewhere? So that I think that's really important to be attentive to, because when I talk about learning, I'm only talking about learning processes and not learning about how this technology works and just transfer the technology. You know, that's not the learning I'm talking about. I'm talking about, okay, how can for example, how does other countries or other, so learning about how to operate in a challenging political environment. So that's a very pure knowledge exchange that can happen on that topic, which is about, okay, when there is authoritarian government, or when there is a government which is not supportive of local practices, local sustainable practices, and a lot of kind of capitalistic actors are more powerful. How do people in other countries experiencing similar political pressures operate? You know, that kind of learning. Yeah.
But actually, you have a very I have a small company which is called the power of local economy. So we are looking on local economic systems, and it's a lot about agroecology and food. So actually how to organize the local value chain, local and near district value chains. And actually in Europe we made the experience, and I think there was no regional or federal state government which was against that, that we had these we call it the slow food movement, that we have we had regions which were fully desperate because due to structural change, no more industry, etc. But then they started to create food specialities or something like that, special olives or honey or cheese, and this worked so well, and especially with the opportunity to trade it as well via the internet. Meanwhile, and online shops, there were regions in Italy, for example, in northern Italy, who completely started to flourish again due to such food specialty production, which we all love. And I guess in Mexico, people, at least the people who can afford, they all do as well love these types of food. And this is in emerging in industrial countries, in emerging countries. I think this is the option. And this is the driver for transformative change, actually, and innovation in the food sector.
Definitely, Klaus. I think Diego was having his hand up, and it would also be good to listen to Nora and Eric. But afterwards, Diego, do you want to say?
Sorry, I don't hear good, but my internet is unstable. But I just want to say about the international cooperation. I am working in a multilateral organization. In my experience, it's a not good idea for regions, because when 95% of these projects in Latin America finishing dries mandioca, especially in the agriculture, is not good enough for regions. I have the experience in Cauca, Colombia. I have the experience in Nicaragua, in Guatemala too. The projects in international cooperation are very lack, and it's not enough good for these regions. I a little bit disagree with this kind of financial resources. I more agree with the cooperation projects like the CESO-SACO. It's a Canadian cooperation to send technical experts to this region. You pay the days, the host for this experts is just one. For me, it's a nice experience project, and have more success, or more success than the financial resources, like GIS, the German agency, or the Italian, or the European. IAAST in Spain is another international cooperation agency that send resources for the Latin America. Another context to bring here is in Mexico. I know Mexico, I know Puebla, is the poverty context. Lots of people have eat one food per day. Slow food is not a good idea for regions like Latin America. For my experience, I don't agree with this kind of project. I'm okay. I know Mexico is the most farthest country in the world. Mexico has this issue, but okay, I bring this is point because we need, as Teresa say, we need to know the context of the Mexico, and bring this experience that I know for my experience in several projects in Latin America in this time. Sorry.
But look, this is not what I meant. Also, the slow food that's clear. That's a complete European perspective. But the idea is always in subsidiary farming, or how we call it, smallholder farming, that the farmer is producing food for himself first. Then he has the opportunity to sell some additional food he is producing and is not using for, not needs for himself, needing for himself on a local market, a regional or local market, or local market normally. And then you have good examples of so-called food cooperatives, if it's in Africa or in Latin America and in Mexico, wherever, where they produce a sort of a specialty or whatever. For example, there is a project in Kenya where they produce mango, which are dried, and then they are sold internationally in fair trade shops, and then they get some additional money for that. And this is the money which they can use to send their children to school and so on. So this is the idea behind this smallholder farming, and we have really to accept that. How is it? I think 70% of agriculture worldwide is driven by smallholder farming. It's still a main group of people who is dependent on this type of farming.
I think, Paulina, that this has been an amazing participation of all our participants. Thank you very much. I would like to just ask the Creating Knowledge Exchange desk. I don't know who posted that, but can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's me. So I was just thinking about, what could be very like this global collaboration, and of course, where you're having a learning and exchange platform. And the idea is to feed such that, these global initiatives also feed to other initiatives happening, across different countries. So I just thought one of the things that we can experiment with is to have like a desk where there's all this knowledge exchange happening, and of course, just documenting, what kind of knowledge is flowing, and how is it supporting the strengthening of these initiatives. And then just another idea sort of came to, as I was just thinking through what we can do. I added something around creating a decision support environment, of course, for policy, and to also support more of the translocal learning, because I'm imagining these are local initiatives, but you also want to have that not trans-international, not trans-international per se, but more of translocal, so that it's
makes sense.
That kind of learning. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much.
I have one idea for you. I think there is really a very great need for doing something for smallholder innovation ecosystems. So the example I gave before, and to compare this worldwide, the OECD has written in 2016 a paper which was called inclusive innovation. And inclusive innovation means nothing else that this is innovation like in these areas in Mexico, which people can also afford. So not the cost of a new machine, which costs $1,000 or whatever, but it may not cost more than $20 or whatever what this smallholder can afford. And there is still lacking research and innovation and what we want to do to compare these smallholder innovation ecosystems in the agricultural sector. This would be great I would like to collaborate in such a platform.
Oh, please will do. I'll keep in touch with all of you guys. This has been amazing. I thank you very much. Paulina, do you think we can move to the next? Because we only have 16 more minutes.
I think we should definitely try and move to the next. We have a picture now of all the Post-its, and we haven't moved them that much, but it would be good that if everyone can take their own Post-it and try to locate it in the next step, which transformative outcomes apply to each experiment proposed. This is just a preliminary exercise, don't worry, but the logic of it all is trying to figure out whether the experiments should be part of building and nurturing the niche, or more part of expanding and mainstreaming the niche, or even hopefully we can get something related to opening up and unlocking regimes. And depending on, of course, of those, of where you would paste your experiment or your Postit, we can talk about networking, shielding, navigating expectations, and so on. So we're just meaning to try also whether this tool could be inspiring in terms of bringing us together to different sections of the transformative outcomes. So we can see the Post-its moving, which is good.
I know, I thank everybody. I mean, you're being great.
Really appreciate this effort and the sharing and the idea.
Absolutely. Carmen, Aletia, do you want to reflect on anything that has been said?
You're mute, Carmen.
I have a point to you. Be a bit careful first learning and really checking this out, because I think the inventor of this niche regime landscape, Frank Gales, once said, it's only a heuristic for structuration of our work. It's no theory and no methodology. This stuff. He developed, the inventor who is responsible for that. So the point is, with all this idea of experimentation, especially when I see the last round unlocking, etc., we could be possibly very depressed when it is not working out, because it's not so simple. There is a lot more, especially at the regime level and all that. You cannot unlock, you cannot completely get rid of the political system or whatever. So we have to be very careful with that. We have really to research and then to compare how it is in other countries, to use other theories, etc., to really understand how it works in different countries at the regime levels, from political theory or whatever. I think this is the important thing. Otherwise, we come in a bit of a crude. We call it in science sociology. We call it meanwhile we have something like a sort of a solutionism. Ethics of solutions. We want to have fast solutions which are applicable everywhere, but this is not the point. I think this is even not helpful.
Definitely, Klaus, thank you. Yeah, it's often that we get more examples of building and nurturing and expanding that not that what we get at the regime level. Eric, we haven't heard from you. Do you want, maybe you want to share something with the group? Or
He says he has no microphone.
Oh yes, sorry, I just saw it. Okay, no worries. We can read you if you want. We do have a visiting creator, visiting innovator, and visiting mariner. So we know that Nora is one of those.
Yeah, I'm just trying to place some of the initiatives that I just thought about, and I think I had talked about technology transfer, so that you kind of see how similar technologies are adopted in different contexts, and I thought that would be around building and nurturing niches. Yeah, and then I think creating knowledge exchange desk. I just thought this could be something more about deep learning, and I've sort of placed it there. But I think it's just good to discuss this. Yeah.
Yeah, we can always discuss, no, where and whether the actual logic of moving the Post-its or trying to imagine where our experiments would perhaps be linked to some not certain transformative outcomes is always challenging and certainly discussable and part of the conversation that we were meaning to have with you.
Yeah, yeah. So I would like to also bring something into the discussion. As we know and have heard along the whole week in the conference, real transformation happens when we change our behavior, when people change our behavior, and that's related to second order learning. So in the terms of the food system, a lot has been said that more than changing the production system, we have to change the consumption. We have to change the beliefs in the people. People have to choose eating differently. And so I don't know if any of these experiments, if anybody wants to comment on what sort of experiment could we think of that can impact beliefs, thoughts, values, patterns, behaviors.
Yeah, like consumption conscience. Huh? I can imagine perhaps like a global communication strategy in terms of where does your food come from, kind of. And also there's also the matter that not everyone can choose, no, in the South, in the global South.
That's a good thing. Not everybody can choose. Yes, Paulina, that's a good point.
I think a key point in that is also making clear, and I think this is a role that also probably strongly falls to, well, to a lot of different actors, is making clear the links between healthy environment and healthy people. So between biodiversity in agricultural landscapes or in landscapes generally, and a biodiverse diet and human health. And that makes it, I mean, going for the human health, that goes into, you know, also larger social issues and addressing, you know, huge problems like the overweight, underweight, malnutrition in every kind of form. So I think those links need to be made a lot clearer.
Yeah, I see this as well in I think in industrialized countries, we have been very strongly linked with the public health sector.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the beginning quite, I did not fully understand, but now it's very clear for me. We had, for example, as a sustainable development goal on the level of municipality, we had obesity as an issue, and it's completely true. And maybe this is you have in Mexico sometimes as well the case that you need something
Absolutely.
in a municipality, that you need some places where children can do sports and they have a healthy diet, etc., and all these combinations with the food system. And so you have a bit of a sort of a nexus where you can, over which you can address this issue.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. The Mexican case is quite contrasting, as we have like half the population below the poverty line, perhaps like 20, a little less than 20% below the food needs, but at the same time we're actually the second place in the world in terms of overweight and obesity in adults, and the first in children. So we have the worst of the two problems in a way, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately there is the chain, you know, the consumption production chain, you know, Coke and all junk food, they reach the farthest place in the municipalities where good food doesn't get, you know, so people don't get to choose, whilst they could decide growing their own food. But unfortunately, they don't see the value of it. So we have 5 more minutes. And before we say goodbye, I want to seriously thank our participants. You have been great, and there's a lot of information there that certainly will keep us busy for a while in trying to analyze, digest, and put into action. And I want to say that I will be looking forward to commit with you guys in the future, get in touch, see if we can grow our ideas and actually develop real projects. That would be fantastic. Having said that, also, I would like to ask my colleagues if they want to say anything before we leave. We have 5 more minutes.
Well, it has been really a very rich discussion where there are many things that identify globally the same issues, the same problems. But I think something very, very important is the way we communicate and we integrate that communication. Because something that we have to diffuse is knowledge, experiences, and have this type of forum, no, to continue conversation. I think that's the most important thing. And then we didn't mention the production and consumption chains. I mean, this has to be integrated in a chain, in a local. I think the pandemic allow us to see the opportunities of consuming things very, very in close territories, and we have to experience that, because still we don't have that local chains in many cities in Mexico, for example. No, we don't have that. We really still have a very unsustainable ways to consume food in Mexico. Okay.
But Paulina, thank you, Carmen.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering maybe if Vipashi wants to add something.
No, I think it was really fascinating to hear, and also all the contributions I'm also sort of trying to digest. But really good. Thank you so much for making this space for this discussion. And I just wanted to sort of also highlight that I posted a link in the chat, which is a kind of a crowdsourcing campaign. I don't know if you have visited the demonstration space, you must have also come across that. But basically, we are in the Deep Transitions project. We are also trying to imagine and create futures. So food is one of our socio-technical systems alongside energy and mobility. So we have like 3 future food worlds, and that kind of, so it would be good to get your feedback and your reflections on how you feel the desirability of these worlds, especially in the global south, because I don't think we have many responses from the global south. So it would be really good if you can share this campaign in your networks and get responses from Mexico. That would be really, really good. I think that would really make things much more diverse. So yeah.
Absolutely, thank you for sharing.
Count us in.
And thank you, Nora, as well. She's sharing her email, and certainly collaborating in the future sounds like something super interesting. Okay, so we're in our last minute, and I want to thank everybody again. This was absolutely amazing. A lot of participation, lots of ideas, and I'm really looking forward to getting in touch in the near future and continue sustaining and growing the network. Thank you, Paulina, Carmen, Aleithia, thank you very much. And thank you all. and keep enjoying the conference. That has been great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Gracias.
Adiós, gracias.
Adiós.
Gracias.